And let's bring in now the Reverend William Barber. He's president of Repairers of the Breach and co-chair of the Poor People's Campaign. At 7 p.m. Eastern tonight, the Poor People's Campaign is hosting an event entitled Voting is Power Unleashed to share tools on voter empowerment, engagement, registration, and protection. Reverend, thank you so much for being on. So tell us how this is going to work. What are you hoping people will learn from the event?
Well, thank you so much. You know, more than 3 million people showed up on June 20, 2020 for our mass Poor People's Assembly about issues. But beyond issues, we have to have engagement. And so people from every race, creed, and color, I like to say from Appalachia to Alabama, are coming on. And driven by data, we're going to talk about the power of the vote, the power to protect the vote, and the power to shape policy by the vote. Because 63 million poor and low wealth people didn't vote in the last, were eligible to vote in the last election. 29 million voted, 34 million didn't vote. From Maryland to New Mexico, there are 193 electoral college votes in a race to 270. In 15 states, if poor and low wealth people would just vote 1 to 19% higher than the last time, they could change every race from the governors to the Senate to the presidency. This is the group that must be expanded. This is that sleeping giant. It's the one that Dr. King talked about and many others have talked about. And it's not just black, it's people of every race, creed, and color. And so people will come on, they will learn about this power first. And then we have Forward Justice led by Attorney Caitlin Swain and at the NAACP Legal Defense Fund led by Sherlyn Ifill, who are going to actually say, this is how you protect the vote. This is how you move. And by the way, Mika, one other thing. The data shows us, this is not emotion, the data that we did commission a study, that poor and low wealth voters have not moved for 3 reasons. Number 1, voter suppression. Number 2, lack of transportation and time. But number 3, because too often they don't hear politicians talk specifically to them. They hear about the middle class and the wealthy, but not about poor and low wealth people and what they're concerned about: living wages, health care, protection in the midst of this pandemic. If they are spoken to, and they move, they can fundamentally shift this election. We believe this, and that's why we're organizing.
So you explain their power and then show them how to use it. Any concerns about the way voting has been used as sort of a political weapon during this campaign, and even an effort to confuse people as to how, where, when to vote?
A lot of it. And that is why we're having this. And that's why we're not just training, a few people to go in and train. We're training thousands and thousands of people so they can teach in their homes and in their communities. Because, we're hearing about the president saying he wants to send in people to intimidate. Well, people need to know how to protect themselves from that. We're hearing that there are people want to do poll watching in the wrong way. Well, there are laws against that. People need to know what their power is. We need to know in every state, how do you vote early? And for instance, in North Carolina, we have numerous days of early voting and same-day registration. So voting is not just an election day. It is a season of election. Poor and low-wealth people need to know every way they can vote and then utilize every way possible to vote. Again, I want your listeners to understand, in 15 states, for instance, in Michigan, it's only 1%. Of poor and low wealth people voting more than they did the last time it changed. In North Carolina, it's only 19%. There are 15 states, under 20%, just under 20% of poor and low wealth people voting who didn't vote the last time. Shift everything. And when it comes to that electoral college, I heard your former guest. You see, the Southern strategy, the extremists and Republican extremists have used that for 50 years, locking up the South. They call it the Solid South. Well, the Solid South is no longer solid if it's organized and people are mobilized. Many of those states in the Solid South, just a small uptick of poor and low wealth people changes the outcome in those elections and in those states.
Reverend Dr. William Barber, thank you so much. And we wish you the best of luck with tonight's event. We'll all be watching. Thank you. And up next, what do House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Yo-Yo Ma, and golfer Jack Nicklaus all have in common? They are featured in a book by our next guest on the topic of leadership And as we go to break, at knowyourvalue.com today, we're looking at how to stay on track and why it's important to your health and your success navigating this pandemic. It's part of our series, the KYV Pandemic Reset. We look at everything differently now, how to connect with your boss and colleagues, how to grow your value, even in a pandemic, how to Zoom well. It's all at knowyourvalue.com and on our social channels. We'll be right back.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.